I never imagined a chance encounter with a millionaire would change my life forever. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was a Tuesday like any other. The wind whipped through the city streets, rattling both my nerves and the crumbling edges of my sanity. I stood outside an upscale cafe, my heart pounding in my chest. I needed this job interview. The job that could save me from drowning in debt. But I was late, and my trembling hands were slick with sweat. Through the cafe's glass doors, I saw the opulence inside. Crystal chandeliers flickering like a mirage, plush velvet seats, and the hum of laughter that seemed so alien to my world. My stomach twisted. What was I doing here? I was just a girl from the wrong side of town, with dreams heavier than my empty wallet. As I stepped inside, the warmth enveloped me, a stark contrast to the biting chill outside. I caught a glimpse of him, Derek Wright. $1 million smile, perfectly tousled hair, and an aura that commanded attention. He was sharp, expensive. He struck a clean silhouette against the ornate backdrop, every eye in the room drawn to him. It was as if time slowed. My breath hitched. When our eyes met, I stumbled over my own feet. Gulp. He noticed. The world faded away, and my problems spiraled into the background. It was just him and me, the air thick with unspoken tension. My palms were clammy, my heart racing louder than the clink of glasses around us. But beneath the charm, there was something dark. A shadow lurking in his eyes. "Are you all right?" he asked, a hint of curiosity in his voice. The sound sent shivers down my spine. No one ever asked. My throat tightened, a lump forming. Most saw me as invisible. He didn't. I shrugged, struggling to find my words, my mind racing. Could he sense my desperation? As if reading my thoughts, he leaned closer. "You look like you could use a friend." A friend? Or was he just intrigued by my scuffed shoes and shattered aspirations? The silence stretched, heavy with possibility. I wanted to laugh, to cry, to scream. Was destiny reaching out, or was I simply a pawn in his well-tailored game? Then, right in that moment, a crash shattered the stillness. I spun around, heart lurching. A waiter's tray had toppled, spilling fine wine flowing Rita, stark contrast against the pale marble floor. Murmurs erupted, gasps echoed. Derek's gaze flicked back to me, sharp and intense. "Stay close," he ordered, his voice suddenly urgent. I didn't even know why I obeyed. I felt a thrill of fear and excitement swirl inside. What had I just stepped into? Was this a chance, or a trap disguised as silver lining? His head turned sharply, eyes scanning for something or someone. And as panic crawled up my spine, I wondered if I had just crossed into a world far more dangerous than I ever imagined. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As I stood there, the world around me seemed to pulse with unspoken tension. The cafe's laughter and music faded, replaced by the steady beat of my own frantic heart. "Stay close," Derek had said, and my feet moved to his silent command even before my brain could process the words. It was a strange instinct, like a moth drawn to the flame, knowing full well how dangerous it was. The chaos of spilled wine had erupted dramatically, but it was nothing compared to the storm brewing within. Derek's eyes scanned the room, and for a fleeting moment, I felt the weight of my own existence. Just beyond the plush seats, behind the laughter and decanting wine, lay a world I couldn't quite touch. Wealthy patrons threw glances our way, most leaning back in their luxurious seats, enjoying this sudden distraction while I stood at the edge, fascinated yet terrified by the sudden plunge I found myself in. My breaths were shallow as I turned my gaze back to Derek. The way he carried himself, shoulders squared, commanding the chaos effortlessly, it was intoxicating. But his sharp blue eyes betrayed a flicker of concern. I wasn't just another face to him. I was something more complex, perhaps a puzzle he was suddenly hell-bent on solving. "I can get us out of here," he said, leaning slightly toward me as he tightened his grip on my shoulder. His proximity stirred an unexpected warmth, making me feel like I could conquer the world or at least the ground beneath my feet. Yet, there was this gnawing fear woven into my skin, an unshakable awareness that the world he inhabited was more than just glamour. It was a labyrinth of shadows and secrets. Suddenly, just beyond the glass which offered us a view of the bustling street outside, I spotted a flicker of movement. A figure lingered, half deflected by the dazzling lights inside the cafe, cloaked in mystery. It was as if the universe had plunged deeper into this unfolding drama. My heart raced. I strained to see. Did Derek notice? "Get down," Derek's command cut through the air. Time seemed to extend as I crouched next to him instinctively, the reality of what was happening crashing in like a breaking wave. The laughter that once felt inviting now morphed into an eerie background score as patrons turned their attention away from us and towards whatever drama was summarized in hushed whispers. Once I began, my voice a choked whisper. "I'll explain later, trust me," he said. But how could I? Trust felt precarious, like walking a tightrope strung above an endless chasm. Moments later, the figure outside moved closer, and my heart sank. I recognized him. Well, I didn't really know him, but the flash of his face was hauntingly familiar. Ivan, my once trusted coworker, whose love for the spotlight had led him down a path I had long since distanced myself from. The last time I had seen him, I was walking away from a gig that suffocated my spirit. Now, nothing but poor choices and reckless ambition had riddled his life, much like my own once had. But why was he here now, lurking as though he belonged? I felt dread pool in my stomach, a heavy omen. Evan's gaze darted around the cafe, seemingly searching for something or someone, perhaps me. My pulse quickened and a cold sweat broke out under my collar as Derek's grip on my shoulder tightened. "Why do you know him?" Derek asked, his voice low, intense with curiosity and a hint of protectiveness that sparked something indescribable within me. "I don't know," I whispered, raw emotion choking my words. But he was part of my old life. I thought I was done with that. Through the crowd, Evan's eyes locked onto mine. Time ceased to exist as a smirk spread across his face, contorted by some wicked understanding. A tense silence enveloped us both, as though the world had narrowed down to the two of us standing on opposite sides of a chasm that threatened to consume everything. "Get up," Derek commanded sharply, pulling me against him. "We need to leave." "I can't," I gasped, my mind racing. "Ivan said we're leaving." "No." His voice was firm, and part of me was desperate to comply, to break free from the gravity of the chaos surrounding me. But a greater force rooted me to the ground, the image of Evan stalking closer, a predator navigating through low tides where I once resided. And just like that, as Derek pulled me away from danger, an unforeseen flicker of hope caught me off guard. In the midst of chaos and fear, I found a momentary spark that perhaps, just perhaps, I didn't have to tread these waters alone. But in that fleeting second, Evan shouted my name, a sound flat with menace that echoed through the cafe, swaying the air around us. The world froze again, the panic spilling back in. "Lila," he called, drawing every eye toward us. The weight of his voice wrapped around my very being, twisting the space between catastrophe and the allure of a past I thought I had escaped. Derek instantly turned to face me, his expression carved with urgency and concern. "Don't look at him." But I couldn't help it. In that moment, a decision loomed above me, dark and heavy. I had two paths ahead. Would I run into the arms of a future marked by uncertainty and shadows, or would I falter under the weight of my past, plagued by the choices that had led me here? And as each question twisted in my heart, I understood that sometimes the most treacherous step into the unknown was also the one that brought the most profound clarity. I felt the room swirl with tension, a dizzying ache as Evan's voice sliced through the air. The smirk on his face morphed into something darker, a predator sizing up its prey. The cafe, once bustling with the hum of laughter and clinking glasses, felt like a cage closing in around me with every heartbeat. Derek's grip on my wrist grew a fraction tighter, his body instinctively moving to shield me, but I felt rooted to the spot, the chaotic world around us fading to a dull whisper as Evan basked in the attention, the chaos unraveling at his feet. "Lila, don't you remember me?" he called, feigning innocence, but I could hear the undercurrent of mocking that drew a gasp from those nearby. Derek's expression hardened, his eyes flickering between me and Evan, grasping the gravity of my connection to the man who was now becoming the focal point of a spectacle. "Stay close," Derek muttered again, as if trying to drown out the echoes of my past. Yet my body fought him, craving to confront Evan, to understand how we had arrived at this moment where two lives divided by broken dreams and ambitions collided so unexpectedly. "What do you want, Evan?" I managed to croak, the words spilling out as I clashed with my old self, the girl who used to idolize the glamour of his lifestyle. For just a moment, I thought I could see a flicker of remorse in his eyes, but it dissolved as quickly as the illusion surrounding us. "Just wanted to see how life is treating you," he countered, stepping forward with deliberate ease. Every step he took echoed like thunder in my ears. "You seem to be enjoying yourself in the lap of luxury, and I thought you might want some company." Derek positioned himself between us, his presence like an immovable wall. "You're not welcome here," he spat, anger rising like steam from a boiling pot. His protective instincts ignited a swell of gratitude and admiration within me, battling with anxiety. But Evan only laughed softly, a chilling sound that curled around my spine. "Is that so? The thing is, Lila and I go way back. Or do you not remember the fun we had?" He leveled his gaze toward Derek, the tension sparking between them in electric pulses. "Stop it," I demanded, the strength of my own resolve surprising me as I stepped around Derek, forcing him to reassess his stance. "I'm not that person anymore." Evan took another step, his smirk tightening. "But you can't escape your past, can you? It clings like a shadow. And what makes you think you've left it behind? You're simply wearing different clothes now." His words dug deep, scores of uncomfortable truths lashing against me, while simultaneously daring me to reflect on who I had been in another life. Who was I really, standing in this cafe, fighting the recognition of an identity that came rushing back in waves? With Evan drawing closer, I felt a strange sense of urgency build inside me, a resolve I hadn't known existed. "This isn't your stage anymore, Evan. You're not going to use me to draw a crowd," I challenged, my voice gaining strength. A couple of patrons moved closer, whispers darting back and forth like frightened moths. My life was being picked apart, dissected for their morbid curiosity, and I sensed the need to rise above it all. Derek shifted back toward me, his jaw tense, eyes flickering with a mix of admiration and wariness. "Let's leave," he urged quietly, shooting a penetrating glare at Evan. Just as I opened my mouth to respond, a figure emerged from the crowd, slender and poised, yet strikingly familiar. "Lila." It was Sarah, my former friend and confidant from my past, now standoffish and weary. "What a surprise!" she exclaimed, but there was a heaviness in her voice that made everything in my gut twist. "Why are you here?" I couldn't help but ask, confusion itching at my throat. The weight of many years apart loomed between us. "I could say the same for you," she returned sharply, her eyes flicking uncomfortably between Evan and Derek. "But I see the past has followed you, as it seems to do." Evan leaned to the side, an intrigued smile curling at the corner of his mouth. "Ah, the jaded friend. Curious how old ties bind us, isn't it?" I felt a wave of anger at his nonchalance. "Why are you doing this? Why can't you just leave me alone?" Evan took another step toward me, but Derek moved forward, placing a protective hand on my back. "You don't have a right to demand anything from her anymore," he interjected, voice low and firm, but Evan shrugged this off. "You see, Lila, I know things. Things you might not even remember, or maybe wish you could forget. It won't be long before you want to hear about it, too." Sarah's face paled as she reached for my arm, her grip tightening as though fear had consumed her. "We need to go. Right now." And just as the pressure began to build, a loud crash erupted from the back of the cafe, the sheer noise sending a shockwave of panic through the crowd. Bodies jerked and turned, and I felt my heart leap into my throat. "Lila, let's go," Derek shouted, his urgency pulling me back to the reality of the moment, yet my eyes instinctively dashed to Evan, who remained unmoved, the frozen smirk of a voyeur savaging the scene unfolding. As I took a step back, my breath quickening. A thought nagged at me, insistent and nagging. What if this wasn't the end of my past? What if it wrapped tighter around my heart, pulling me back with every secret left unspoken? Lila, Evan called out, his voice slicing through the chaos with unnerving clarity. Your story is far from over. And as those words hung heavy in the air, a cold dread settled into the pit of my stomach. In that moment, everything flickered me past, my present, and the encroaching shadows of my future, collapsing into one overwhelming sense of urgency. As Derek urged me toward safety, my heart thudded painfully in my chest, a silent plea swirling within. What awaited me when I crossed the threshold into the unknown? And what chilling truths lay just beyond the door of yesterday? The chaos around me felt like a scene pulled from a nightmare, flashes of noise, panicked faces, and the sharp tang of fear drifting through the air. Derek's hand on my back urged me forward, but my feet felt ensnared in a rapid current of confusion and turmoil as Evan's mocking laughter echoed in my mind. Just as we neared the exit, a heavy presence brushed past us, a tall man in a tailored suit, a stranger to me yet imbued with an air of authority. He seemed to cut through the crowd with a calmness that commanded attention. Shared glances exchanged between the patrons hinted at recognition, some faces registering both admiration and fear. Is everyone okay here? He asked loudly, his voice steadying the room, slicing through the remnants of panic lingering in the air like a gentle embrace. He scanned the crowd before turning his attention to Evan, eyebrow arched in challenge. You need to leave. Now, who do you think you are? Evan sneered, flaring up as if the elegant man were a mere fly to swat away. But the stranger took a single, calculated step forward, a menacing confidence radiating from him. I am someone who knows the trouble you've caused, and it's time for you to stop. Go back to your life, Evan. Leave Lila and the rest of us alone. The man's voice held a velvet softness over a steel undercurrent, duality that seemed to intrigue even Evan. As the two locked eyes, I sensed Derek's tension shift, a nestled respect forming for the newcomer. I stole a glance at Sarah, whose expression mirrored Minea, concoction of confusion and awe blossoming like a strange flower in the darkness. Who was this man, and why did I feel a flicker of hope at his arrival? Before Evan could muster a retort, the man shifted his gaze back to me. Lila, are you all right? His eyes held a kindness that dispelled some of the swirling fears gripping me. Yes, I think so, I stammered, my thoughts still tangled in the fray. Derek squeezed my shoulder. Let's step outside. We can't stay here. The cafe felt suffocating, and I nodded, allowing Derek to guide me through the tumultuous crowd. As we pushed out the door into the cool air, the rush of the city enveloped me, an unsettling reminder of how isolated I felt from everything around me. The weight of setbacks and memories was not simply suppression, it was a barrier I struggled to understand. Once outside, we paused for breath. The piercing reality struck hard, a juxtaposition of the bustling world and lingering danger aside. I glanced back through the glass windows to see Evan standing there, still addressing the stranger with a simmering rage, and I shivered. Lila, Derek said, turning toward me, his face taut with concern. Are you sure you're all right? That guy Van knows you. Not really, I replied before hesitantly sharing the remnants of my past, recounting whispers of dreams and shadows. My fears spilled forth, colliding with Derek's quiet understanding. As if an unspoken bond was bridged, I continued, he was part of a life I thought I had left behind. That life was filled with promises and deceit. I can't believe he's here, taunting me again. Derek's gaze softened, and he brushed a stray hair behind my ear, an act so gentle it sent tremors through my heart. Then we'll face it together, he affirmed. But his voice carried an honesty that set a new layer of admiration weaving between us, awakening an emotion I wasn't prepared to confront. Sarah stepped outside, her expression still fraught with worry. She leaned against the wall of the cafe, arms tightly crossed as if to shield herself from some shadow that hovered just beyond the threshold. Are we safe? she asked, shivering slightly as if the cool breeze had pierced her skin. I don't know, I admitted, the uncertainty unraveling my bravado. A hesitant silence swelled around us, punctuated only by the distant echo of sirens, a reminder that danger was more than just Evan. In a sudden wave of adrenaline, a voice cut through the night. The man from before emerged, his confidence unrivaled as he approached us, a spark of friendly determination in his eyes. "I'm Jacob," he introduced, extending his hand toward us, a bridge spanning the unknowable distance between strangers. "And I assure you, Evan is nothing to fear if you stand together. The past can resurface, but that doesn't mean it must define your future." His words felt like a comforting blanket, a gentle promise nestled against the gnashing reality clawing at the edges of my mind. Yet as I took his hand and felt its firm strength grasping mine, an unexpected warmth bloomed in my heart, a moment of connection in a world riddled with estrangement and unspoken fears. "Thank you," I whispered, noting the fleeting flicker of relief in the pit of my stomach. But before we could talk further, a shattering sound erupted from inside the cafe, drowning out all else. Glass shattered as a figure bolted through the door, eyes wide with terror, Evan's fury trailing closely behind. "Lila!" he screamed, his voice a tempest, and the very ground beneath my feet trembled with uncertainty. My heart pounded violently against my ribs like a banshee's wail, clawing at the promise of safety just out of reach, and as Derek shielded me once more, I felt the world spin wildly. Aware that nothing was as it seemed and that each choice echoed deeper than I could ever comprehend. But in the face of chaos, one undeniable truth emerged: the connection we shared was both a sanctuary and a target, blazing with the possibility of hope even as the storm approached. "Run!" Derek shouted, his voice piercing through the chaos, and my heart leapt into the abyss of the unknown, riddled with both fear and curiosity about what awaited us on the other side of the unraveling tempest. The world blurred as I sprinted, the adrenaline coursing through my veins like wildfire. Derek's grip on my hand was firm, leading me away from the chaos of the cafe and into the gnawing uncertainties of the night. With every step, I could hear Evan's rage echoing behind us, a relentless baritone that clawed at my resolve. We dashed into the narrow alleyway, shadows swallowing us whole. The air outside was cool and still, yet it felt oppressive, cloaking me in a sense of impending doom. I glanced behind us, still feeling the remnants of that thrumming connection with Derek. Tether I was now painfully aware could be tightened or severed at any moment. "What's happening?" Sarah panted, her face pale as she leaned against the cold brick wall. The streetlights above flickered ominously, illuminating her worried expression, and I could feel her anxiety infecting the space between us. "I don't know," I whispered, my eyes darting to the entrance of the alley, half expecting Evan to barrel through the other end, a storm chasing the wind. "He shouldn't be here," he promised. Jacob joined us, his expression steely yet composed under this pressure. "Listen, the situation with Evan is complicated. He may think he owns the path to your future, but you have a choice, Lila. You can decide your own fate." His words pierced through the fog of my fear, sending shivers down my spine. It was strange to hear someone bolster my spirit when my confidence lay frayed. "What do you mean?" "He knows me and he's afraid of what you're capable of once you remember who you truly are," Jacob interjected gently, stepping closer. The sincerity in his voice wrapped around me, but the uncertainty lingered like the remnants of smoke in the air. I took a deep breath, steeling myself against memories of a past I desperately wanted to escape. "He knows my weaknesses," I countered. "And he uses them." Derek moved in closer, his presence a reassuring anchor. "Then we'll find a way to make your weaknesses into strengths." Together, before I could respond, another crash echoed from the cafe, the sound reverberating through the alley like ice cracking underweight. Panic began to bubble within me. "We can't just stand here. We have to move. Come on," Derek urged, and together we pivoted, racing through the shortcut that led to the busier street. My heart raced, not just from the exertion, but from the weight of my own thoughts. Would I ever be free of the past? The shadows of memories encircled me, reminding me how often I had let fear dictate my choices. Then, as if summoned by my thoughts, The ground trembled with Evan's voice once more, closer, this to me a melody of fury and malice. "Lila, I know you're out there," he taunted, his voice ringing with a deranged certainty. "You can't hide from your past. I'm going to make you remember." The chill of his words penetrated the night, stirring the air beyond comforting warmth. A knot twisted in my stomach, but among the terror, I felt a flicker of anger ignite. How dare he presume to define who I am or what I could become? Suddenly, we burst onto a main road, the city alive with traffic and sound. I felt exposed, the night still thick with danger, yet I couldn't help but pull Derek and Sarah towards the safety of lighted streets. Our hurried footsteps echoed beneath a lattice of neon signs promising everything from cheap eats to vibrant nightlife, a world I felt torn from but was still drawn to. "Where do we go?" Sarah's voice quivered, panic threading through her words. "Anywhere but here," I replied, determination punctuating my response. I turned towards Derek and Jacob, voices calm yet assertive in their assurances, as if their mere presence siphoned some of my fear away. "What now?" "We need to regroup," Jacob said, glancing around, surveying the street. "Find a place where we can catch our breath and think, somewhere Evan won't expect us. An underground bar," Derek suggested, and in my mind, I could hear echoes of laughter and clinking glasses, places where stories converged and lives were intertwined, where the past could be left behind, if only for a moment. "There's one just down the block. We can slip in there," Jacob added, his eyes narrowing as he assessed our surroundings. Quickly now. We hurried into the bar. The heavy door swinging shut behind us felt like a protective barrier. The music thrummed through the air, vibrant and alive. A jolt of mixed emotions surged within me, a tug of nostalgia battling the walls I had built against my fears. We found a booth in the back, hidden but still within reach of watchfulness. "Let's stay low," Jacob urged quietly, his face suddenly serious. The environment sucked us into anonymity, yet the danger still loomed just outside. "What do you really know about Evan?" I asked, my curiosity mixing with apprehension. "And why did you intervene tonight?" "Because I've seen what his darkness can do," Jacob replied, his eyes steady. "And what it almost did to someone I care about. And who is that?" I inhaled, watching the flickers of vulnerability play across his usually impassive face. "Someone who tried to stand up to him but was crushed." "I won't let that happen to you," he stated, his intensity nearly palpable. Before I could absorb his words, the bar door swung open, a gust of chilly air flooding the warm interior, and a figure stepped inside. The moment felt like it had been suspended in time as my heart dropped into my stomach. Evan stood silhouetted against the dim light, eyes wild and searching, a raging storm I had dreaded. "Lila," he called, his voice slicing through the music with a sinister edge. "I'm not done with you yet." The world around me stilled as dread gripped my insides. I could sense the walls closing in, knew that the confrontation was inevitable. The shadows of my past, woven with promises and lies, threatened to catch up to me, and I understood then that the choice I had to make would not just define me, but draw a line between survival and surrender. What would I do? As the chaos bore down, it felt like the choice hung in the balance, a tightrope walk over uncertainty, fluttering between the gentle whispers of hope and the piercing echoes of my fear. The bar was a whirlwind of sound and light, laughter spilling over the music only to be soaked up by the thick atmosphere of uncertainty that gripped my heart. But the moment Evan's voice pierced through the haze, time warped around me. The world seemed to shrink, the bar's lively energy collapsing into a tense stillness, leaving me suddenly isolated in the eye of an emotional storm. "Lila." Evan's voice boomed again, a hunting call tailored to rattle me to my core. "You can't run from what you are. Not now." Derek instinctively shifted closer, his presence a shield against the chilling effect Evan had on the room. But the warmth from him felt like it was marvelously distant. Fear bloomed like wild roses in my chest, twisting my perception into a blurry haze. I dared a glance at Jacob, whose expression was a mix of concern and readiness, as if he were calculating how best to protect me. "We can't let him draw you out," Jacob whispered urgently. "Stay low, stay quiet. We'll figure out our next move, but my insides turned tumultuously. Evan wasn't just a looming threat, was a part of my history, entwined with the core of who I was. The memories were locked away, and it felt like they were aching to resurface. I resisted the urge to scream, to fight back against the intensity of the past trying to bubble up through the cracks of my carefully constructed present. Suddenly, Sarah tugged my arm. "What do we do?" "Lila, talk to me." Her voice quavered, barely above a whisper, but grounding in her concern helped center me a little. "I don't know," I murmured, emotions swirling too quickly to articulate. "What does he want?" "Power," Derek said curtly, his voice tinged with anger. "He thinks if he can intimidate you into submission, then he wins." Then it struck me his was about more than just him wanting me to remember. This was a battle for control. He had tried to grasp at my memories to dictate my choices. The thought made my blood boil. I looked around the dimly lit bar, taking in familiar faces laughing, dancing, enjoying life, unaware of the grave danger lurking just beyond the door. What had been a reprieve had now morphed into a prison. "Lila." Evan's voice cut through once more, louder, sharper, closer. "You need to listen to me. You don't know who you're playing with." A sudden wave of anger surged through me, rising up from the depths of my fear. "I'm playing with my life, Evan. And I'll decide my own fate." The words spilled from my lips, a declaration that surprised even me. As much as his voice loomed large in my psyche, it was nothing in comparison to the mounting realization that I held power over my own narrative. Derek's eyes widened, and I could see Jacob smirk for just a fraction of a second, as if my resolve had colored the atmosphere with the courage I still wasn't sure I completely possessed. But just as I hung on to that flicker of rebellion, Evan entered the bar, scanning the crowd with alarming poise. I tensed, heart racing, as I felt the unwelcome energy wrap itself around me again, constricted and suffocating. "Where are you hiding, Lila?" he taunted, though the challenge sounded like a battle cry aimed straight at me. "Face me. We can mend all those broken pieces together." "You don't have to be afraid of me." Panic surged through my veins, but the spark of defiance roiled hot within me. "I am not broken, and I will not be mended by you." I stood up suddenly, trembling with an exhilaration and fear I had never felt before. There was a moment of stillness, a breath held like the world had paused for me. The bar took notice, a ripple of confusion as heads turned towards us. The music faded into the back as all eyes landed on the confrontation. The weight of their gazes felt like an unexpected ally. It bolstered my courage even as I faced and unleashed Evan.S. "Oh, this is how it ends with you, Lila? A feeble attempt at defiance?" he challenged, moving toward me with a chilling confidence. But I wouldn't back down. I took a step forward, daring to meet his fiery gaze. In that moment, I realized something that froze the air in my lungs. Inside this brew of chaos was the fact that I had a whole support system coiled behind me: Derek, Sarah, Jacob, all ready to rise at my side if this battle escalated. Moreover, my heart ached to remember. Grappling with my past was inevitable, yet this moment felt poignant, a convergence of my myriad identities coming together. "Evan, I am more than your pawn," I shouted, adrenaline morphing fear into clarity. "And whatever gives you strength cannot touch what is mine. I will find my truth without your chains." Evan's expression shifted for a brief moment, a flicker of uncertainty flashing across his features before his practiced facade hardened back. "You think you hold the cards, Lila? You don't even know what's coming next." Then, like a thunderclap in a silent night, the bar door burst open again. The sudden influx of a group of loud patrons created an upheaval of noise, drowning out Evan's foreboding statement. My breath hitched, confusion tearing through me as I turned to see who would dare to pull the attention away from the looming confrontation. But the shock that gripped me as the crowd parted was gut-wrenching. Standing amidst the chaos and reckless laughter was someone I never anticipated, someone I hadn't seen in years, but had haunted my memories like an uninvited guest, my long-lost brother, Ethan, wearing a facade of calm. Yet his eyes betrayed a tempest brewing beneath. "Lila," he spoke, drawing the gaze of the entire bar, "I'm here to take you home." As his words settled in the air heavy with tension, an icy dread pooled in my stomach, and all of the possibilities twisted into a single undeniable truth: me past had come roaring back, and this time it was armed with the prospect of deeper, Darker connections. The air was charged with an inexplicable fear and disbelief. Ethan's presence disrupted the already fragile atmosphere, reminiscent of a thunderstorm, brewing overhead, threatening to unleash its fury. My heart raced while the weight of the world pressed down on my shoulders. I had imagined reuniting with him countless times, not here, not now, and certainly not at the expense of what felt like a life-and-death struggle. "Ethan?" I whispered, the word tumbling from my lips, hardly a question, but a desperate plea for confirmation. Memories flooded my mind, each electrifying with love and warmth, quickly overshadowed by sorrow. How had so much time passed in silence, and why now, when I was on the brink of returning to my own power? "Lila, you don't have to be here," he said, his voice steady but laced with urgency. "I've been looking for you." The eyes that had once felt like home now bore unseen scars. I could see he was grappling with something dark behind those familiar features. The bar had become a blaring cacophony, laughter mingling with questions, and my world had shifted unpredictably like sand beneath my feet. Evan stepped closer, his shadow looming over my trembling figure, determination etched across his face. "Don't listen to him. He's the last person you should trust. Remember what happened last time, Lila?" The underlying malice in his voice sent another wave of dread trickling down my spine. I hesitated, uncertainty flooding my insides. It felt like I was standing at a crossroads between two paths, one leading back to a life so familiar yet filled with pain, the authera leap into the unknown, alongside those willing to fight for me. Ethan's gaze focused on Evan, a veritable wall of protective rage. "What you're doing to her is unforgivable," he said with a voice like gravel, unapologetic and fierce. There was a flicker of recognition between the two men, a silent battle of history and ambition simmering beneath the surface. I could see Evan considering this new twist, its implications racing through his mind like an unsettled storm. "Stay out of this, Ethan. You have no idea what you're meddling with." Evan lashed back, venom in his voice, but I could see the tremor in his hand, the cracking of a facade he had worked tirelessly to maintain. "Maybe not," Ethan replied, his tone even more resolute, borrowing strength from my own flickering resolve. "But I do know that I'm not leaving here without my sister." My heart twisted painfully, the room swirling around me in shades of turmoil. Did he truly understand what that meant? Did either of them grasp how intertwined their fates had become with my own journey of self-discovery? Derek clasped my elbow, grounding me, though uncertainty sprawled forth like shadows creeping on a sunlit path. "Lila, we need to leave now." "No," I responded, shaking my head fiercely. "This is my choice. I need to decide." Jacob's hand clenched, a silent plea for resolution, and my heart ached with the weight of his concern. I could feel an invisible tug-of-war within as my brother's presence became both a source of comfort and a reminder of my frayed ties. Would he help me confront my past, or pull me deeper into the abyss I thought I had managed to escape? "Lila," Ethan coaxed, pulling me from the whirlwind, his voice slipping under the chaos. "I understand you're scared, but you should never have to face him alone. You're more powerful than you realize." I glanced back at Evan, alternate histories colliding in my mind, the betrayal, the pain, the loss. What had once seemed like a mere shadow of my life now spilled into full color, reshaping everything I fought to build. But what was the truth behind Ethan's return? Would he truly be the savior I needed, or merely another player in a game already marred by deceit? "You think you can save her?" Evan interjected, a scoff underlined his sarcasm. "You both don't even understand what you're up against. Your little reunion doesn't change that." Suddenly, I felt the gravity of that truth. This confrontation was not merely between me and Evan, but a confluence of past and present, my lost memories, colliding with the present in a spiral of danger. I could almost taste the implications hanging in the air, heavy as lead, tantalizingly bittersweet. "Tell me what you want, Evan," I demanded, each word hardening my resolve. "If this is a game, then reveal the stakes. What do you want from me?" The bar fell into a heavy silence, the breathlessness of anticipation wrapping around us like tightly woven threads of fate. Suddenly, the tension broke as Evan's lips curved into a chilling smile. "The time will come for that, Lila," he replied, the enigmatic promise drawing liquid fear into my veins. But for now, just know this: you won't escape your past as easily as you think. I felt a sudden lurch in my stomach, as if the ground beneath me was preparing to shift. The air crackled with revelation, the uncertainty painting my reality with strokes of panic. In that moment of confrontation, my world had only spun tighter, secrets coiling around my heart. "Ethan," I called, desperation flooding my senses. "What's going on? What are we facing?" But before he could respond, Evan's laughter rung through the silence, a piercing sound echoing against the walls of my mind. And in that moment, I realized just how far I was from knowing the truth, the hidden intricacies of what Evan claimed, and what lay hidden in my own fractured memories, enshrouded in shadows. "Welcome back, Lila," Evan said with an eerily calm demeanor. "You've just ignited a fire that can never be put out." The gravity of his words settled around me, heavy and suffocating, suffusing the air with betrayal and heartbreak. It was then that I understood this chapter was only beginning, and my past was entwined with an inescapable force, pushing me toward a revelation I wasn't ready to confront. As the echoes of Evan's laughter dissipated into the oppressive silence, my heart quickened, chasing the shadows that danced around me. I could feel the heat of a million emotions boiling beneath the surface: fear, anger, defiance. But more prominently, there was an undeniable ache for clarity, a yearning to untangle the web of lies that bound my present to the chaotic past. "Lila, stay close," Ethan urged, his eyes scanning the room as if searching for hidden threats. I considered his presence, that flicker of certainty amid my growing storm. But doubts gnawed at my mind. Was he truly here for me, or did his motives, like mine, carry an undertow of something more sinister? Evan, leaning against the bar with an air of unshakable confidence, watched us, amusement flickering in his eyes. "You think you can protect her, don't you? But this is bigger than both of you." His tone was probing, almost seductive, each word manipulating the air around us, coiling tighter as if the atmosphere itself conspired against our liberation. "Enough," I shouted, feeling emboldened by the chaotic tapestry of my thoughts. "You think you control me, but am not your pawn anymore. You lost that power the day I chose to fight back." The bar patrons had become whispers in the backdrop, their lives suspended by the emotional tempest brewing between us. I could sense the lines of division being drawn not merely between me and Evan, but among the tangled connections of past hurts and resentments. There was a volatility in the room, a promise of confrontation yet to come. Ethan moved closer, his breath warm against my ear as he whispered, "We can't let him manipulate you, Lila. We need to find a way out of this." I could feel the sincerity in his words, but the smallest doubt flickered like a candle barely fed by a breeze. Was it merely my own fears speaking back at me, or was his presence stirring old wounds I was still trying to heal? Where would we even go? I shot back, urgency sharpening my tone. "What if he knows every step we'll take? You can't just burst into my life again and think it will all be okay. Maybe it starts with discovering why he wants you," Ethan replied with a gentleness that steadied the tremors of uncertainty within me. Yet, the implicit answer still left me unsettled. I longed for the understanding that had once felt so integral, but as I glanced back at Evan, I was reminded of the warped mirror of our past where trust had been dismantled, replaced by deception. "Tonight, I'll show you exactly what you've been shielding yourself from," Evan said, his tone sly yet laced with a venomous sweetness. "But remember, Lila, ignorance isn't bliss. It's a prison. And it's high time you learned the truth." "What truth?" I bit back, feeling the edges of my temper fray. "The truth of your manipulation? Your exploitation of people's insecurities? Because if that's what you want to show me, then I don't need a lesson in pain." Evan's dark gaze pierced through my bravado, a chilling reminder of all that lay between us. "Oh, but the truth is always more interesting than pain. You might just surprise yourself." A flicker of chaos rippled through the air, small moments of commotion as patrons clinked glasses in merriment, utterly oblivious to the turmoil behind the scenes. Yet, one firestorm bore witness to another. Amid the laughter, I caught sight of a stranger, a woman quietly watching me from across the bar, her eyes brimming with empathy and unspoken wisdom. There was a connection, unexpected kindness imbued in her expression, like someone who had tasted the bitterness of betrayal herself. Urgency coiled within me. Ethan, we have to leave before he pulls us into something we can't escape from. But before he could respond, Evan stepped forward. You can't run from this. Find the woman across the bar, and maybe you'll understand what I'm saying. A knowing smile played on his lips, veiled with dark layers of intent. Why would I began, confusion knotting my thoughts, but the mystery behind that woman's gaze intrigued me far too much to ignore. An inner force pushed me to take action. I felt an unexpected current of hope, urging me to unravel the threads of my own life's tapestry. With a swift nod that signaled my determination, I squeezed Ethan's hand. Let's find out what this all means. The path through the bar felt constricted, like the walls were closing in on us. The air was thick with an anticipation I couldn't shake off. When we finally reached her, I could see the depth of wisdom in her eyes. She didn't appear to belong here, yet somehow she had a vital role in this tale. Lila, she spoke, her voice delicate yet firm, resonating in my soul. You don't know it yet, but your story is about to take a turn you never imagined. Ethan gripped my shoulder, a silent warning that electrified my skin. What do you mean? I pressed, feeling the weight of countless eyes suddenly focused on us. The woman's gaze darted back toward Evan, whose demeanor had shifted from playful to dangerously serious. What I'm about to share isn't just about you, Lila. It's about all of you's, about what was taken, and the actions that have yet to unfold. A shiver ran through me, thickening the air with uncertainty. I could feel the ground shifting beneath my feet, preparing me for revelations I may not be equipped to handle. What's coming next? I asked, desperation creeping back into my voice. She leaned closer as if to shield our conversation from the looming shadows, and her whispered words danced on my ears. But what came next was beyond anything I could conceive. A truth, two lives intertwined, a dark, twisted secret that threatened to unravel everything once believed whole. Evan isn't just after your past, she said softly, weaving the fabric of suspense tighter. He's after you in ways you can't even begin to fathom. Just then, the laughter in the bar diminished to a haunting echo, and in that silence, I sensed the tightening coil of destiny preparing to snap. The tension escalated around us, and I realized that escaping this life isn't merely a choice, but a fight, one that would test the very essence of who I was meant to be. Ethan's eyes met mine, the silent exchange affirming the imminent battle ahead. Yet, the truth, a monumental risk, had just unraveled its cloak of secrecy and wrapped itself around our fates. And as the revelation sunk deeper into me, an even darker question loomed. What if what Evan sought could change the essence of my existence forever? The bar's atmosphere twisted, unbearable in its intensity. I could feel the flickering heat of uncertainty surging between the three of us as Evan lingered at the fringes, a vulture circling the carcasses of secrets long past. The woman had called me by name, drawing me into a world I had thought I could leave behind. What do you mean by that? I forced the words out, fighting the clench of dread in my stomach. The air hung heavy with anticipation. The woman's gaze softened, a fleeting moment of tenderness flaring briefly as she measured her next words. Lila, the threads of your life are woven not just by your choices, but by the choices of others. Evan has a history you don't yet understand. I'm aware of his history, or at least what he wants me to know, I shot back, the anger bubbling beneath my skin. With every revelation, every twist, I found myself teetering on the edge of upheaval. If he's dangerous, I'm not going to let him dictate my life any longer. Sometimes, Lila, it's not about allowing or denying, she continued, her tone both grave and empathetic. It's about what you're willing to uncover. You may not see it now, but the past can have a way of coloring the present. The candlelight's flickering shadows danced behind her, casting elongated figures against the worn bar walls, figures that mirrored my turmoil. My heart quickened, each beat laden with a truth that was becoming harder to deny. I had spent so long running, but Evan had always been one step behind, lurking in the recesses of my story like a shadow man. And what does he want? I pressed, desperation dripping like honey from my lips. To finish what was started, she replied, glancing furtively toward Evan. He tapped his fingers impatiently on the side of his glass, amusement waning into a stormy haze. But know this, you have a choice in how it plays out. Ethan squeezed my shoulder again, grounding me. Lila, we don't have to listen to her. Let's just leave. His words were resolute, yet behind his certainty there loomed a fear I could taste, a fear that we were on a precipice, teetering dangerously close to an abyss of revelation. No, Ethan. My voice trembled slightly as I fought against the swirling doubt in my mind. I need to know why he's hunting me. Why no? Evan's stance shifted, tension electrifying the air. You really should listen to her, Lila. If you're seeking answers, I'd be more than happy to provide them. Arrogance dripped from his every syllable. I hated that he held power over me still, that his very presence stirred up a trepidation intertwining with memories both comforting and dark, a reminder of the bond that had once existed, but now felt irrevocably tainted. Can you ever tell the truth? I spat, pushing back against the fear creeping into my chest. This isn't just a game to me, Evan. Stop playing with my life for your own amusement. He unfurled a smirk, one that was part intrigue, part menace. And what about your life, Lila? Letting go is like trying to grasp sand through cupped fingers. You slip and lose it all. But on the other hand, holding onto the past can pull you into a spiral that's impossible to escape. The woman exhaled slowly, her eyes blazing with a silent challenge. There's strength in knowing the truth, Lila. Even if it hurts, it's better than living in darkness. As I pondered her words, an unfamiliar resolve swelled within me. I looked at Evan, who was now leaning in, curiosity glinting behind his dark irises. What game was he playing? I felt vulnerable, exposed to his probing gaze, yet I understood that I couldn't cower beneath his scrutiny anymore. I need to know everything, then, I said, my voice steadying. All of it. Evan's smirk deepened. He was enjoying this. A bold approach, I must admit. Before he could continue, a sudden tumult erupted from behind the bar. Glass shattered, echoing like a gunshot through the space. A commotion started, patrons gasping and recoiling as a familiar figure burst into the scene, the last person I expected to see, yet deeply connected to the web unfolding around me. It was my brother, Jamie, frazzled and wild-eyed as the room's tension skyrocketed. Lila, we need to leave now, he shouted, scanning the room as if the very walls conspired against him. The room erupted into chaos, like a house on fire, flames licking upwards, wanting to consume everything in their path. Evan's expression shifted, irritation mingled with intrigue. The game had changed. The stakes had risen. Jamie? My pulse raced with confusion and urgency. What's going on? He turned back to me, panic coursing through his veins. I'll explain later, but right now, we have no time. My heart pounded in response, the world spinning as I faced the unshed tears glistening in Ethan's eyes. No, we can't just leave. There's so much I need to understand. Evan's lip curled into a cynical smile. It seems you don't really have a choice, Lila. Sometimes the truth finds you unprepared, like a storm brewing fiercely before it breaks. Jamie surged forward, anxiety threading its way into his voice. Trust me, Lila. We can't be here. In that moment, the weight of my world pressed down around me, walls closing in, choices slipping away, with every heartbeat echoing a desperate plea. But beneath it all, an unsettling urgency clawed at my insides. It was as if revelation danced on the edge of a knife, waiting for someone to make the crucial cut. And so, as I stood there, flanked by the shadows of my past and the looming specter of the truths I had yet to confront, I was forced to decide. Plunge headfirst into the darkness with Evan's lure or flee into the unknown, clinging to the fragile hope of safety with Jamie by my side. In that piercing moment of choices, both disastrous and revealing, a shattering truth hovered just beyond reach, waiting to unfold and reshape everything I thought I knew. Time slowed, but my heart pounded with anticipation. The future threatened to collapse, shifting under uncertain shadows, leaving me suspended before a revelation that could change everything, one way or another. Time stood still in the frenzy of emotions swirling around me, an existential storm stalking just outside the edges of my consciousness. My heart thudded painfully, pounding out a frantic rhythm as if it were trying to break free from its confines. I stood, flanked by my brother Jamie, ever so desperate for the escape he offered, and Evan, whose dark presence felt more sinister than ever, marionetting the strings of a past I was only beginning to reclaim. Jamie stood before me, urgency etched deep into the lines of his face, every inch of him vibrating with necessity. I longed to squeeze out the reassurance that swirled just out of reach, the comfort of knowing I wasn't alone in this chaotic world. "I don't care what you have to say, Lila. You've got to trust me," he pleaded, his voice a blend of desperation and conviction, but the room felt almost like an echo chamber, each voice muted and washed away by the flood of my own misgivings. "Why now? Why is any of this happening?" I pressed, my words heavy, yet seeking answers that had eluded me for so long. Evan's slightly amused expression morphed, a predator keenly attuned to the shift in dynamics. "Ah, Lila. Sweet, naive Lila. You're striding into a dance you cannot control." His voice was intoxicating, laden with an unsettling charm that wrapped around my resolve like a vice. Shivers coursed down my spine, yet the fire within me flowed stronger than ever. "And you think you can control it?" I shot back, the simmering strength in my voice surprising even me. "You no longer hold power over me or this situation." Evan leaned closer, a predatory glint dancing in his eyes. "This is not just about control, sweet girl. This is art. A tableau of desires, secrets, and shadows. And you're the centerpiece, whether you accept it or not." Desperate for clarity, I turned to Jamie. "What's your stake in all this?" Frustration coursed through my veins as I considered the very fabric of my existence being echoed in the choices of those around me, choices they made for me, behind cupped hands and closed doors. But Jamie, as if sensing the weight of the past closing in, stepped up to fill the void. "I wanted to protect you. And I thought if I stayed away, you would remain safe from everything that broke us apart." "You thought that leaving would protect me?" My heart filled with sorrow for the brother I knew. "Your absence, Jamie, only drove the knife deeper into my back." The room around us was crawling with tension, the laughter fading to a hushed stillness, tears pooling where naivete once dwelled. Jamie's eyes widened at the weight of my words. Gavin's shadowy presence loomed, a reminder of the man I had tried to escape. "Lila," he shouted, his voice cutting through our exchange. "Remember what your brother can't tell you. The family you have is not the only one. That's a dangerous thing to forget." Fear gripped my stomach like an iron vice, second-guessing the choices that had torn my family apart. "What do you know, Evan?" I demanded, every grain of fear melting into rage, leaving flames behind. "Do you really think you can manipulate me with the echoes of my life?" A twisted smile crept across Evan's face, as if he were savoring the concoction of emotions laid bare. "Manipulation isn't my intent, darling. Perhaps what's at stake is simply your legacy, those whose shadows linger and shape the life you think you fled from." His words echoed through me like an incantation, awakening memories hidden behind cobwebs of hurt and betrayal. I needed answer knowledge that would dismantle the tight grip of my fears, and as I fought for breath amidst the chaos, Jamie's hand felt small yet sturdy on my shoulder, embodying a tether to courage. "Let's go." Jamie urged again, this time softer, his resolve crystallizing with the panic flooding our surroundings. But Evan's presence struck like a striking serpent, coiling lethal secrets around us.no. I gasped out, forcing a balance between the storm inside and the tempest surrounding us. I wouldn't just run 3 steps away from my history and leave it unexamined. "I need to finish this." "Finish this?" Evan echoed, his eyebrows arched playfully. "You're only beginning, sweetheart. The choice is yours, but remember the truth waits at the edge of darkness." In that moment, I felt the weight of possibility, woven within my terms, a choice poised delicately between chance and loss. I flicked a glance toward the stranger from earlier, reeling back to reality. "What do you mean by the truth waits?" "It means you can't escape what is within. Universes knit by memories will always pull you back," she implored, her voice cutting through the din of growing chaos. Growing resolve mingled with doubt as a decision began to crystallize in the depths of my heart. I felt this power deep within, all along, a clarity that had cradled the shadows of sorrow, but now roared for liberation. Tell me everything, I whispered, casting Evan a determined stare, stripping away any trace of fear and unveiling the fierce warrior poised to reclaim her truth. Surprise flickered in Evan's expression even as laughter echoed, demanding attention from the patrons around us, but deep within, I could barely grasp the current's pull of everything teetering on the cusp of chaos. Very well, he said, a smile curling at his lips. What I wish to reveal may change everything. But remember this: every truth belongs in shadows where it once thrived. Choose wisely. As he spoke, the ambience shifted. The rhythm of life pulsed like thunder outside the bar, an imminent storm brewing, ready to devour everything in its path. From behind him, a voice broke through the haze, confident, steady, yet undeniably familiar. You've got this, Lila. A flash of warmth flooded through me as Derek emerged from the depths of the bar. He stood, arms steady, eyes aflame, and within that moment, I felt the hearts of those supporting me entwine like strong strands of resiliency, hope that could withstand anything, even Evan's shadowy truth. With every ounce of determination, I planted my feet, ready to fight, to learn, to embrace every crack of light that dared illuminate my path through the darkness. When the world spun, I would not falter. I won't back down, Evan, I declared, firmed by the strength of every ally beside me, their energy vibrating through the very fabric of my being, and as the haze began to clear, I could see my future opening up before me like an unfurling flower. Vibrant and necessary, an acknowledgement of the fierce woman I'd become, and a resolution reverberating in my soul. Come, let's face this together, I said, feeling the truth stand tall beside me as we pushed against the winding paths of our shared history, all leading toward the light. Evan's eyes flickered, a cunning smile unraveling on his face, twisted yet teasing. So be it, dear Lila. Every story deserves to reach its climax. And as we thrust ourselves into the whirlwind of truth and vulnerability, I knew I was prepared to embrace the exhilarating chaos that awaited beyond, because sometimes liberation comes only after treading the fine lines woven between shadows and light. In that raw, haunting moment, hope ignited. I was not alone anymore, stitched together by fragments of a rich tapestry, boundless and unbreakable, ushering me forward into the embrace of the unforeseen future that spread wide before me, and all at once, as clarity struck like molten gold, I understood. The truth may shatter, but it also has the power to set you free. Let my story breathe, I whispered into the depths of the unknown. I am ready. And as those words escaped my lips, the realization that I was finally free washed over me, more profound than any storm I had ever faced. In that moment, the air shimmered, and for once I felt whole.